Hello and welcome to season 3 of the Quantum Creating Podcast, bringing the world of the formless into form and other true stories with me, your host, Paul Webb. Well, we are back, and when I left you at the end of season 2 at the end of July, well, here in the UK at least, things were looking up. Virus cases were pretty low, deaths were almost non-existent, shops, pubs, restaurants and most importantly gyms were opening up and things were looking positive. However, as of recording this at the end of January, literally right at the end of January, the cases are high once more, deaths are the highest they've ever been, and we're deep into the third national lockdown. Can we legitimately ask those in charge what on earth is going on? And wasn't it Albert Einstein who said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? And there must be a lesson in there somewhere if the powers that be are interested in only looking and locating it. Anyway, this isn't a COVID response critique kind of podcast, so let's move rapidly on. What I have got for you though is some great content, some quite amazing guests coming up and some valuable conversations coming up during this season. But as this is the first episode in 6 months or so, I thought I'd take a moment or two to bring you up to date on what I'm up to at the moment and doing in the not too distant future. The big news is, I guess, that I've enrolled in a doctoral study program, studying metaphysics with the University of Metaphysics in Sedona. Now, this is something that's been coming for some time, to be honest, and the two clinching factors were, well, having more time to study during various lockdowns and realising that of their 200 plus book recommended reading list, I've actually read 150 or so of them already. Now, how long will this study take? Who knows? But that's never really the point when you decide to plan and attain a goal. Bob Proctor once told me that you don't set a goal to really achieve the goal, but to become the kind of person that can achieve the goal. And that aligns beautifully with another quote from Einstein, who said, "You can't solve a problem with the same level of mind that created it," meaning that it's all about the growth you have to undertake continually. Maybe our government should have a think about that quote and meaning as well. Maybe I'll send it to them, eh? The second bit of news is actually in its early stages, but I am joining forces with 2 other world-class coaches to bring a new lifestyle coaching program to the marketplace. As with the study, I'm really excited by this project, to be fair. All 3 of us are vastly experienced in our field with a history of success and a desire to help people make a huge difference in their lives. No doubt I'll bring you more details on this as and when we are ready to roll, so keep an eye or an ear out for that. So as you can see, I've added quite a bit to my current coaching programs, which have run constantly through the lockdowns, but I'm really enjoying working on all these different projects with all these wonderful people. Now, what I want to do with the rest of this podcast, though, is talk a little about what adopting a more metaphysical lifestyle could do for you. Firstly, for those who really don't know or have always wondered what exactly is metaphysics, let's give it a definition. And its broadest definition can be defined as the exploration of the fundamental nature of non-physical reality in relation to origin, existence and understanding. So whereas physics is the explanation of the physical manifestations and workings of the universe, metaphysics explores the non-manifest, that which sits behind the physical. Now, when you consider that physical matter consists of just about 4% of the entire universe, you can see that the study of metaphysics is actually huge. Those who study metaphysics are often known as practical mystics, and it's worth me pausing here for a moment to reflect on the word mysticism, as it is a much abused word in today's world. Don't dismiss it though, as it represents the highest quest of human growth and awareness. As explained to me, the qualities of mysticism, when properly defined and explained, lead one to discover their ultimate self-reality, that is, the relationship of man, woman, mind and the universe. And from there to discover if there's a supreme universal intelligence, what we call God, residing in the deeper levels of the human mind. Now, not out there, but actually in there. It doesn't stop there though, as practical mystics not only dive into these deeper levels of mind to make direct contact with this supreme universal mind, but also experience this presence as a knowing that it exists and can be contacted. And therefore the practical mystic can, via deep meditation, bring forth into their conscious mind and surface daily life the creativity, attributes and power of the universal mind for the purpose of improving life through the application of practical mysticism. Now, there are a couple of things I'd like to explain for you. The first is the G word. Yep, God. I know that some of you will be triggered by the use of the word God, and that's to be expected. Let's be honest, it's a name and a concept that we all have a story about, even if we deny or don't believe in the existence of a creator. However, I'd like to offer my understanding of who, or more accurately, what God is. God is nothing more than universal source energy, that which is all power, all knowledge, all presence. It's undefinable, which is why we have such a difficult time trying to describe who or what God actually is. It's indivisible and unchanging. It's non-local, means it exists, for want of a better word, outside of space and time, and yet it's the life force or energy behind everything in space and time. Never said this was going to be easy, folks. Quantum physicists would name it the quantum field, a field of unimaginable energy, of potentiality that underpins all of existence in the universe. Theologians call it God. Despite the way it's been anthropomorphized over eons, they are speaking of the same thing. Incidentally, as an aside, the Tao Te Ching, which I love to bits, doesn't name it, as it states that to name it, you cannot know it. Interesting. You can only be it. Another thing I'd like to talk briefly on is meditation, specifically why meditation is important to the practice of mysticism. Well, not just important, to be fair, but an essential foundation and the key to contacting and maintaining contact with the ultimate intelligence or God. During January just gone, this January, I held a masterclass on using metaphysical principles to help you win the game of life, in which I went into detail on a specific mystical meditation practice. I'll go through it here briefly, but I'll also add the link to the replay of this class in the show notes, so you can check it out at your leisure should you feel like doing so. So pick a place in your home where there is the least likelihood of being disturbed, and try to keep to the same time and place. Either sit up at a table or lay down, although I'd highly recommend it sitting up to begin with at least. If you sit up as straight and comfortably as possible, feet flat on the floor, resting your palms face up in your lap. If you prefer to lay down, try to make sure your head is facing north, your feet are facing south. Cross your feet and fold your hands over the central upper part of your body. Make sure the room is a comfortable temperature, not too hot, not too cold, so Goldilocks. Wear loose-fitting clothing. Also, don't meditate if you're hungry or have just eaten something. For this specific meditation, place a single white candle in front of you, and this is one of the reasons why I recommended meditating seated, and for 5 to 10 minutes approximately, stare at the flame. You don't have to time yourself. Then close your eyes. You should see an after image of the flame on the anterior region of your forehead, known as your third eye region. Use this image as a focal point of concentration. With practice, by focusing here, you will still be able to see, your mind and free it from outer daily life thinking, which helps you become more aware of this internal consciousness of your higher self. Now, one thing I want to mention today is the dirty secret of the personal development or self-help industry. That's the you can do, be or have anything mantra that perpetuates most teachers or coaches' content. To be honest, I've too fallen foul of this myth in the past, and for good reason. It's a very intoxicating concept and it's true to a point, but is sadly misrepresented by most. So let's put that right, shall we, before we leave you. According to the latest quantum model of reality, we exist, as already mentioned, in an infinite field of incredibly powerful and fully present energy. This energy field is a field of potentiality, which means that all potential outcomes must exist at all times. What does that mean for us exactly? Well, let's use learning to play a musical instrument, say the guitar as an example. When we first pick up a guitar, we have very little, if any, knowledge of how to play it. But as a learning-based species, we have the ability to quickly and reasonably learn any new skill if we practice it mindfully enough. So, not too long after picking up the guitar, we're able to strum a reasonable tune or maybe even a simple song. Are we then capable of becoming, if we focus hard enough, a soloist, maybe fronting a rock band? Well, most teachings in the personal development industry would say yes, if you focused on the outcome with enough desire. What does the science say? Well, the potential of a rock guitar soloist exists. It's a potential outcome of guitar playing, but, and here is the distinction you need to be made aware of, it may not exist for the new guitar player. Just because a potential exists, it doesn't mean it will become a probable outcome in this life experience for this particular player. There are many, many factors at play, and the new player may not be able to align with all of them. For example, she may be 50 years old when she first picks up the guitar. Most soloists in a band have amassed many, many hours of dedicated, focused, deliberate practice before even stepping on stage with the band. A young teenage boy, for example, may have an interest in playing riffs on a guitar, but also have many other interests besides, and therefore may not have the desire to focus solely on playing guitar. And even if that weren't the case, there are other factors at play at all times. I, for example, am very athletic and undoubtedly could get faster at 100-meter sprints even at my age if I chose to, but I'm not genetically equipped to worry the best in the world at the 100-meter sprint. So rather than give yourself a hard time because you've been led to believe that if you aren't the best in the world at something, then you're doing it wrong, just enjoy the process of expressing yourself through whatever medium you choose. And this is exactly what metaphysics teaches, and why it's so important to understand exactly what a spiritual journey, what spiritual growth, what spiritual awakening is really about, rather than holding yourself up to standards which you could never hope to emulate. Over the coming weeks, I'll bring not only some exciting guests for you to enjoy on the Quantum Creating podcast, but also some returning ones, beginning with Mr. Manny Wolf next week. I'll also bring you a few solo episodes as we go along the way, and maybe the odd Q&A episode if I get enough questions from you. It's great to be back, and thank you so much for joining me today. And as mentioned, I'll be joined next week by Manny Wolf. And if you like your Marvel content, you'll love what we talk about. If you don't, why not? It's a proper question, but fear not, there'll be more than enough for you to enjoy. So it's just left for me to say thank you so much for welcoming me back. I'm so happy to be back with you. Have a safe week, and I'll see you next week on the Quantum Creating podcast. Take care.